Hi guys, today I will show you the step-by-step process of creating this wolf style constellation in Inkscape. I provided the project files in the description. I will also put a link to the image I used. Make sure you drag this image in Inkscape before you start the tutorial. Now that you've brought in your image, the first thing you need to do is to rename the layer. I'll call mine Wolf. Go ahead and lock it. Create another layer on top of the first one. I'll call mine Lines. Now we need to enable some snapping settings. You can find them in your viewport on the top. In your viewport they could be located somewhere on the right. You enable them by clicking on them. Now we're going to change some outline thickness settings. We're going to do that using our Bezier tool. We'll draw a random shape and adjust the line thickness. Then we're going to double click on the Bezier tool to make sure that the settings stay the same. I'll show you that in a minute. Hit B on your keyboard to bring out the Bezier tool. To draw a shape with the Bezier tool, we left click any part on the canvas, and to close the shape, we hover over the first point we've made when it flashes red. Right now our outline thickness is too thick, so to adjust that we hit Shift Ctrl F on our keyboards, or alternatively you can click this little icon with a paintbrush. Navigate to the Stroke Style tab. Enter the line thickness to something small, like 2. Now, without deselecting anything, double click the Bezier tool. Make sure your settings are like mine. Hit the Take from Selection button. This will make sure Inkscape remembers our settings. Now we can go ahead and delete the triangle, we don't need it. The last step we need to do before we begin drawing is to increase our snapping distance. We do that by going to File, Document Properties, navigate to the Snap tab. We want our distance to be anything above 40. At this point, it's a good time to save your file. We are going to zoom into our image. To do that in Inkscape, you hold down the Control key and move in and out using the mouse wheel. To draw out my image, I'm just going to make a couple of shapes defining the areas in my image. We're going to draw the shapes pretty much the same way we did the triangle. That's by left clicking and closing when we hover over the first point. Our snapping settings are really going to help us get this work done a lot faster. I'm going to fast forward this video and come back at a point in time when I've finished mapping out the image. This is what we have after mapping out our image. The next thing we're going to do is to merge all our shapes into one line. To do that, hit S on your keyboard to bring out the transform tool. Left click and drag over all your shapes. Now go to Path and select Combine. Now the last change we need to do is to smooth out our line corners. I'll zoom in on a part on this image so that you can see what I mean. To change these lines, go to your Stroke Style tab. To bring out the window, you can press Shift Ctrl F. We're going to choose Round Join and Round Cap. Now we're going to duplicate our shape. In Inkscape, we do that by pressing Ctrl D. At this point, you need to disable all your snapping settings. This will help us move with ease. We disable them by clicking on them. Drag the duplicate over to the side. Now we're going to create the dots. Go over into Extensions, Visualize Path, and choose the Number Nodes option. Change the dot size to something like 10 pixels. Select the Live Preview option. Depending on your machine, this may take a bit of time. Go ahead and apply. Zoom into the area where the dots are. You will notice that there are also numbers on the side. We are going to get rid of these numbers. To do that, we ungroup the whole thing and delete the numbers. Click any one of the dots. Press Ctrl U on your keyboard. Deselect everything by clicking anywhere on the canvas. Zoom in again and click any one of the numbers. Press Delete. Now that we have our dots, we need to align them to the shapes. Go ahead and press Shift on your keyboard and click any one of the dots as well as the shape. Now press Shift Ctrl A on your keyboard to bring out the alignment options. Alternatively, you can click this little icon. We will choose Center on Vertical Axis and Center on Horizontal Axis. That's lined them up perfectly. At this point, we need to create our background. Go ahead and press Shift Ctrl L to bring out the layer window. Create a new layer on top of the wolf layer. We'll name this Background. Now select the rectangle tool. To create a perfect rectangle, you hold down the Ctrl key and drag. We're just going to drag and create a small rectangle which covers all of our image. Now, we need to group our lines and dots. Then we're going to align them to the rectangle. So go into the lines layer, select the transform tool, drag over all the dots and shapes. Hit Ctrl G to group them. Now that they're grouped, we can now align them to the rectangle. Hold down the Shift key and click the shapes. While still holding it down, click the rectangle. Go to your alignment tools. And click Center on Vertical Axis and Center on Horizontal Axis. This will make sure that our image stays right in the middle. Go ahead and lock the lines layer. We're going to change the color of the rectangle to something dark. I'll change mine to a gray. We do that by clicking any of the color boxes on the bottom. Go ahead and lock the background. Now, go back into your lines layer and unlock it. We're going to ungroup everything and make sure that we change the different color settings for the dots and the lines. Click the image and ungroup it by pressing Ctrl U. Click anywhere on the side on your canvas. Zoom in and click on one of the dots. In the color palette, choose the white color by clicking on it. Now click on any one of the lines. We're going to hold down our Shift key to change the outline color to something light. I'll change mine to an aqua blue. Hold down the Shift key and click the color. Zoom out again and group everything. We do that by pressing Ctrl G. Now we can lock our lines layer and we're going to create another layer on top of the background. We'll call this one Stars. Now, in order to create the stars, we're going to draw a couple of circles. I'm going to make sure that my circles are smaller than my nodes. So I'll zoom in on my canvas. Select the circle tool. If you want to draw a proper circle, you hold down your Ctrl key and drag. And if you want to draw ellipses, just free draw. I'm going to make a couple of them, as I'm going to use my spray paint tool to cover the canvas. Now, go ahead and press S on your keyboard to bring out the transform tool. Left click and drag over all the circles you made. Don't deselect anything at this point. Zoom out and select the spray tool. You'll find it on your toolbox. It's a green spray can. Now I'm going to cover all of my canvas, making sure that I don't step outside of it. To spray, you hold down your left mouse button. and move at ease. If you're happy with the way your stars are looking, go ahead and lock the layer. Unlock the lines layer. We're going to ungroup the lines and dots again. We use the transform tool for this, so hit S on your keyboard and click on the shape. Press Ctrl U to ungroup. Now, zoom in and click on any one of the dots. Go to Filters, Blurs, and choose Feather. Change the strength to something just over 1. Click the Live Preview option to see it in real time. Go ahead and apply. That brings us to the end of this tutorial. Feel free to ask any questions in the comment section. I'll make this file available